Hello there, welcome to today's show, and today I'm going to be making for you a traditional croquembouche. Now, croquembouche is a French wedding cake, but nowadays of course it's made all over the world for all sorts of different occasions. It is a very impressive looking cake, and it's also known as a profiterole cake because it's made from profiteroles. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with that, profiteroles are a form of choux pastry. So the choux pastry is actually made into little balls, and when they cook they hollow out in the centre and you can fill them. And we're going to be filling them today with another base recipe called creme patissiere or pastry cream, and that will form the filling, and then we're going to layer them on top of a cone. Now, this is a traditional croquembouche cone, and I'm going to hold it up. Look at the size of that. Isn't that? This is actually a very large one. We're not using this one. It's actually quite big. You'd probably need about 100 profiteroles to cover that. We're making one considerably smaller, and we're not going to use a purchased mould like this. These are very expensive to buy. Unless you're going to make a lot of them, I probably would advise you not to go down that track. But I've made a makeshift one out of cardboard and baking paper, and you'll be able to look at the video on how to do that back on the website, blackbookcooking.com, as all of the ingredients or all of the base recipes we're using for today's show are all back on the website. So I've already pre-made them all. All I'm going to do is show you how to fill them and how to assemble the croquembouche. Okay, once the profiteroles come out of the oven, let them cool just a little bit, otherwise you're not going to be able to handle them. And then what you want to do is take a very small paring knife, and we're going to cut them in half through the centre. Now, if you've done these correctly, what should happen is they should be pretty dry and hollow inside. You may get some of this, and this one's actually quite dry because I've let these sit for a little while, but that may be a little bit moist. If it is, either pull it out with your fingers or use a teaspoon to just scoop out any of that leftover internal bit. And what we want to do now is go through all of these and cut them all in half. Okay, once you've done all of those, and I've got a lot more than these, I've obviously made a considerable amount, but just to show you, then just put them to the side and bring in your creme patissiere, which, as you can see, I've already pre-made, and what I did was cover it with Glad wrap or cling wrap, that's our brand name, and right down over the top so it didn't form a skin. So make sure that you do that, otherwise if you're making it in advance and leaving it, it will in fact form a skin. I've got another bowl here which I'm just going to bring over and sit to the side, and what we're going to do now is we're going to fill each of these. And now I've tried to keep my halves together. All you're going to do is take a teaspoon of your creme patissiere, put a reasonable amount in but not overfill it, and then place the lid on the top. If you keep your halves together it'll be a lot easier, and then just stack them up in a bowl so that you've got them ready to do the croquembouche when the time comes. So I'm just going to work my way through those now, and we're going to fill them all with our creme patissiere. So you take the profiterole, put a hole in the end of it using the nozzle, and once you've got your hole, the nozzle goes back in and we squeeze, and if I just lift that out you can see that the creme patissiere is actually going into the profiterole. So you just put it in, fill it completely, until it fills it up like that, and that's ready to go. Okay, so let's begin with assembling now. Now, this is the way that I do it. It's not necessarily the traditional way. I use a bit of my creme patissiere around the base, and I do that to hold the bottom ones in place. Some people will do this with toffee, but I must say that I find it's a little bit fiddly with the toffee because it's very hot to work with, and I want to make sure that my profiteroles on the base are going to stay in position. So the creme patissiere works well, and also it doesn't leave that sticky toffee all over the bottom of my dish, which does become difficult to remove. Then take your cone and literally sort of go over the top of that so it holds it in position. Obviously you'll need to make a little extra of your creme patissiere for this, and then add a little bit more on the outside of that all the way around the base. So now that we have that all around the base, let's take our first layer of profiteroles and we're going to just push them into position. And this will just help stabilise them because these are the foundation of the layers going above. Alright, so that's our first layer. So we're going to put another layer of creme patissiere now. Again, to stabilise this base, and also because I want to use it up, and it's quite delicious. And try and place them sort of in between the other two underneath, so that we get a nice even layer happening, and also a bit like when you're doing bricking, not that any of you necessarily have done that, but if you make them at slightly uneven positions, it does tend to hold in place. Now, part of this, of course, we want to make sure that our lids stay on our profiteroles, but we also want to get a nice effect happening so that we're not looking at the sides of our profiteroles. Okay, so we've got 3 layers of our profiteroles now and the rest of the creme patissiere. So what we're going to do now is to do a little bit of drizzling of toffee before we spin it, and this will help to set these in position and also enable us to add the rest of the profiteroles. So what I've done is got my toffee to this gorgeous caramel stage, and I'll just move it over a little bit more so you can see under the camera there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a honey spoon, I suppose is the best way to, or drizzler, not really sure what the name of it is, and I'm just going to do a little bit of drizzling. This is a slow process. We want to make sure that we stick all of those in position, give a little bit of drizzle over the side. We want it to set it in position but also decorate as well. Now, this is not spinning toffee, this is literally drizzling the toffee. So all we're doing at the moment is creating a lovely barrier around the outside to help set those in position and also give us that lovely crackle that we'll get when we actually serve this. We've got no more creme patissiere, so we're relying on the toffee now to hold our profiteroles in place. You need to work relatively fast because you want the toffee to still be moist and runny and set with the new profiterole layer on top. Now we're going to drizzle more. Another layer of toffee. Okay, so once you've completely finished and you have all of the toffee in place, now it's time to do a bit of spinning, and I don't mean the fabric variety. Using your tongs and with your toffee that's nice and viscous, what we want to do is just drizzle over the top but flick at the same time. So what we're causing is these very fine strands, which are essentially caramelised fairy floss. And just do that all over the top, all the way around the croquembouche, so that it forms like a waterfall of toffee all the way down. I have spun a little earlier, as you saw, so I'm now going to use this as a nest to decorate the whole top. And there we have our croquembouche. Well, I think it would be pretty difficult not to be impressed by that. It tastes divine. It is absolutely exquisite, and it sounds really, really good when you break off each of the profiteroles and you hear that toffee cracking as you're doing it. It really is an impressive dessert, and I'm sure if you attempted it and presented it at your dinner table, then you would really get lots and lots of accolades. I hope you enjoyed today's show. I hope you have a go at making a croquembouche, and I hope it turns out well for you, and I hope you enjoy eating. I know you will enjoy eating it. It is absolutely delicious.